Legend of Total War here, and today I'm going to be going over this blog a bit from a psychological point of view. I really couldn't care less about the actual words that are said in here, but the sort of intention behind it I thought was very interesting, and so that's what I want to do here. I'll leave a link to this blog in the description if you want to check it out. But yeah, Total War Warhammer 3, an update on unit recruitment issues. I'm not looking to have you guys take up the torch or do anything. I think that if you're satisfied with the results of this, then that's fine by me. I don't have a stake in this anymore or anything like that. But I find it interesting, and I just think that you might find it interesting too. So have a bit of discussion. But anyway, just before we get started, just wanted to point out that you guys got the negative reviews, positive reviews to Steam on Steam 31%, which means the negative reviews are at 69%. Nice. Especially considering it's Tides of Torment time, it's Slash Focus DLC. But anyway, so hotfix 6.3.2 is presently scheduled for release next week. Cool. This is from what I heard, more or less, that it was coming, and it's before they're going to really focus on the DLC stuff. This may have delayed their marketing a bit for it. I don't know if it's going to delay the DLC. Maybe it'll come late or October, maybe early November. I have no idea. I've heard some rumors, but I don't know everything. I don't know anything that goes on. All I hear is a couple of rumors. They're not extensive. But anyway, then this part here, they go into detail about what causes the AI with this issue. And like I said, from a psychological point of view, this is all smoke and mirrors. It's quite obvious to me it's smoke and mirrors, but they're very good at making it seem like this is what the players were actually complaining about, but it wasn't, right? So if we look at over here, Total War Warhammer 3, an update on unit recruitment issues. Did a single person say, fix the unit recruitment issues, Creative Assembly? No, that's not what they called it. And so they title it something different than what it was, and that way they're able to sort of downplay what the actual thing is. Because unit recruitment issues doesn't sound as bad as lobotomized AI, which is much closer to the truth, because it wasn't really just a recruitment issue. That might have been the thing that caused them to be lobotomized. But they were from the campaign that I played. Tehenowin sat in his capital. He wasn't just not recruiting. He declared war. So he was functionally in diplomacy. Declared war on me as Clan Pestilence, and I had undefended settlements that he just refused to take, which he was capable of doing so, even though he wasn't recruiting any more units. Because Skaven garrisons are rubbish. He definitely would have been able to win. My armies were nowhere near there, and he just decided not to do anything. So it was it was brain dead, lobotomized AI. But anyway, so all of this stuff here, talking about what caused the AI to sort of be completely brain dead, but this wasn't. I don't think anyone, maybe a few people, I don't think most people give a shit about the underlying what's going on with the AI. I don't think anyone asked, hey, Creative Assembly, could you please tell us what the AI is thinking? I think most people were saying, just fucking fix it. We don't care. Just fix it. We don't want an explanation. Fix it. Yeah, they wanted an explanation on when it was going to get fixed, not what is required to fix it. I don't give a shit about this. This doesn't matter. I think most of you guys don't give a shit about that either. But the reason why they put this in here is because by addressing this here, they don't have to address the elephant in the room. And people look at it, again, the psychology of it. Oh yeah, they addressed the issue that I had. Was that the real issue? Yeah, it must have been, right? Because it was pretty close to what I was angry about, right? I forgot what I was angry about. And then they just go back into playing the game. Yeah, thanks, Creative Assembly. Good job. I'll go back to playing the game, and I'll pre-order the DLC. And so that's the whole point here. Is just to be like, we're talking to you about something that you weren't really bringing up as the core problem, so that we're communicating with you, right, guys? We're communicating with you. And then it puts people at ease, puts them right back into the box where they want them to go. Back into the don't think, back to go into buy our DLC practices and all this kind of stuff. And they haven't addressed the actual issue because they don't want to address the actual issue, because that's a lot more. It's a more nefarious thing, that one, rather than just the AI was broken. That wasn't the problem, right? So, in closing, please accept our apologies for the experience that you're currently having with the game. Is that really what the problem was? Because I'll tell you what the problem was, right? They have got systems in place for players to provide feedback in a closed beta. People provide feedback and they're supposed to be addressed. This bug was picked up on a long time ago, and they acknowledged that it existed, And they also acknowledged that they didn't care about it. They were like, oh, we'll deal with it with 7.0. And of course, nobody has any idea when 7.0 is, at the end of the month. And this is a pretty bad bug. Now, from what I've heard behind the scenes a little bit from Creative Assembly developers, it's important to understand sort of how the ecosystem appears to work at Creative Assembly, that the developers are not in charge. It's management that's in charge. And all of this here, right, what we are seeing is the developers are speaking through us. The management is speaking to us through the developers. The developers aren't talking about what their complaints are on their end. They're just like, I want you to sign this, but this is what our official statement is, sort of thing. Now, from what I've heard, many developers at Creative Assembly who are able to do patches and stuff like that on this kind of AI stuff wanted to get this prioritized before Tides of Torment was focused on, and that the management told them basically, shut up, get back to work, do as you're told. We're not doing that. The community that wants this done, they're overreacting about it. It's not that big of a deal, all of that kind of stuff. The management did not see this as an issue. They didn't give a shit, but the actual developers did, right? And that gives you an idea of where a bit of the problem is, or actually a huge amount of the problem is. So this bug was like 2 weeks since the patch 6.3.1, and they had no intention of dealing with it right away. As Total War players, we have dealt with our fair share of like bugs. I mean, how many times has there been like a stupid bug implemented in the game? From it being like Greasus Goldtooth having 400 speed to the backspace exploit and all these kinds of things. And most of the time, people don't get outraged about it. And there's a key difference between when people do get outraged about it and when they don't. And it's not about the severity of the bug. It's about the lack of giving a shit from the actual developer itself. Most of the time, when there's an issue, they deal with it straight away. If you remember back in Warhammer 2, they made a update to ports, and it was universally hated. Basically, everyone on the forums was like, we don't like this. And then the very next day, they rolled it back. We're like, sorry, rolled it back, and then that was the end of it. They are able to deal with this stuff very quickly. And sometimes it takes a lot of outrage to get them to actually give a shit about it. And this is one of those times. This is why it's such a close parallel to 2023. Because in 2023, they were just doing whatever they wanted to do, and they thought that you would just buy it no matter what, and they didn't give a shit. And when people finally stood up against them and stood up to them, and didn't buy the DLC out of principle, that's when they went, oh shit, this is costing us money now, we need to do something about it. We're so sorry, guys, we promise we won't do it again. Here's our apology tour. And the apology tour, it seems like it came to an end, maybe at the beginning of the year, I don't know. And what's happened now is that seemed like they were right back to square one. And they don't want to acknowledge that this has happened, which is why they've sort of done the smoke and mirrors and making it seem like the problem is something than other than what it was. The problem isn't that there was a bug in the game. People are very forgiving of there being a bug, and they're dealing with it right away. Like if this had happened, if they had posted the patch, and then someone said, "Hey, the AI is not working," and then they quickly on a post like this said, "We're aware that we just put in a patch that broke the AI. We're on top of it. We're putting everything on hold. We're going to deal with this right away. It's a bit more complicated than we thought, and we're on top of it." None of this would have happened. None of this would have happened. And that's the key thing here. That's not what happened. It's that it happened in reverse, right? It's that this had to happen before they had that take. Before they're like, well, we're on top of it, guys. Yeah, this is how we know it's happening. But it took the outrage to do it. That's the core problem. And the thing is, as consumers, it's not your job to get the developer to do quality assurance. It's not you're not quality assurance for Creative Assembly. You're not getting paid for it. You're paying them to QA for them. And I mean, there's some other developers out there that do that as well, and they get just as much criticism, if not more. And it happens too often. And the reason why this happens is because of management. And what's happened here with this AI thing, they've addressed the symptom of the problem, not the actual problem itself, which is management clearly didn't give a shit about this bug being in the game. They've done this loads of times before, and they pushed it out. I'm sure that the developers would have said, hey, we shouldn't push out this patch. We should delay it a bit. There's a key issue. And they went, no, get it out. We need to focus on DLC. Because they're the ones that make all the decisions. And the developers are not able to go out on social media and tell us, hey, guys, there's a massive bug in this patch coming in. Because as soon as any of them do that, they're on a one-way trip to McDonald's for employment. So they're not able to do that. Anyone that works at Creative Assembly has their social media carefully curated, and like they're basically got this entire like kind of spy network. They're kind of like, if you work at Creative Assembly, it's like a big brother looking over you, to the point that like you can't really. They don't want you interacting with the community at all. Like you are supposed to be completely separate from them, and it's the community management team to control the narrative as much as possible. And so they use the developers to speak. Sorry, say it again. They use the developers to speak through, but they're probably not actually, this isn't their words. But anyway, so what can you do about this? Well, you can get outraged every single time that they do this. It probably won't happen again for a while. Maybe 6, 12, 24 months, who knows? But is this going to happen again? Yeah. Because I said back in 2023, I said this is going to happen again. You guys didn't hold the management accountable. They didn't suffer any serious consequences for it. And if they don't suffer consequences for fucking up, then like if they fuck up and then they get away with it by just these smoke and mirrors, then they go, okay, well that works. So we'll just, next time we fuck up, we'll just do it again, and we'll do it again, we'll do it again. And it happens over and over and over again. You'll get outraged next time, and you put lots of negative reviews, they put this in, and then it goes back to normal. Until the management that causes these things to happen are held accountable, like properly held accountable. I'm not going to say what needs to happen. I mean, it's up to you. I don't give a shit. Whether that be them getting demoted, getting a pay cut, getting taken out the back and getting smacked on the bum with a fucking steel rod. I don't know. I'll leave it up to Sega. I'll leave it up to Creative Assembly, or whatever. But until there's actual consequences for management fucking up like this, it's going to keep happening. And this is why it's important that there is consequences, and why there is important for the accountability. People in positions of power should feel scared. You should feel terrified of making a mistake, because you should feel like that your mistakes will have consequences, and therefore you will do your best not to make those mistakes. That's how the power dynamic should work. The people in positions of power should be terrified about the consumers causing them to lose their job or get a pay cut or anything like that. And the funny thing is that that's the dynamic that I have on YouTube, right? I've pointed this out as well. I'm terrified of getting cancelled again, okay? Because massive consequences, and so I have to be very careful about that. And that's a good thing. It's a good dynamic that I should always, everyone in a position of power should always be very careful about the mistakes that they make. I mean, everyone's going to make mistakes. You take accountability of them. It depends on the severity of it. But if you exist in a climate where you can just do whatever you want and you fuck up, who cares? Blame it on someone else. It's someone else's problem. Then it doesn't give you any incentive to do better next time. And so this will happen again. This will keep on happening until accountability has been enforced upon them, because they're not going to do it themselves. I can promise you that the management at Creative Assembly are now sighing a sigh of relief, going, whew, dodged another bullet. Okay, guys, let's get ready to 40K this shit and do some, man, I don't know how they're going to get away with it, the 40K community. How many apology blogs are they going to do with 40K? I don't know. It's going to be hilarious. I kind of want to just observe from afar what should happen, but I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people that'll come in the comments here and be like, oh, I thought you quit, bitch, you couldn't stay away. I said I'm staying for 3 more months. Okay, it's not my fault. Don't watch that video. I bet you it'll happen. I bet you there'll be a bunch of people that'll say, oh, I thought he quit. Yeah, you wait and see. Maybe now that I've said that, it won't happen, but we'll see, because that happens every single time, but whatever. So I'm not going to tell you that you should continue fighting them. I'm just saying that my prediction is that it's going to happen again. I won't be here next time to do anything about it. I'll probably hear about it just from Chinese whispers or whatever, just from people I'm connected with who will eventually get back to me, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And it's how many times the big question that I want to press to you guys is, do you want to have to do this again? Do you want to have to go onto the Steam reviews and post a negative review? I didn't bother doing it. I don't care. I didn't leave a positive or negative review. I didn't do anything. This here, I didn't participate in it because like I said, I don't care. It's not my fight. All I wanted to do was tell you how to do it, but you already know how to do it. But yeah, if you want to not have to do this again next time, you've got to get those management held accountable, and the way to do that is, you got to vote with your wallet. So this is what I would recommend if you want to do it. I'm not saying you have to do it, or even that you should do it, but this is what would work. Tides of Torment's coming out. They just did this bullshit. If you go, nah, not buying this. If you did that, and their sales were vastly lower than expectation, and you made it very clear that it wasn't because you disliked the game, it was out of principle that you disliked how they handled this, and they haven't earned your trust back from their apology tour from 2023, that it tells you that the management is at fault, and this is just going to keep happening. If you did something along those lines, there will be consequences, because somebody is not going to get their millions of dollars. And when somebody doesn't get their millions of dollars, they're going to look for whoever caused them to not make millions of dollars. And those people are going to get in trouble, right? And then those people in future will be fucking terrified of making this mistake again. And you are far less likely to encounter it. And they're going to be bloody fucking careful about putting out a patch that bad. And if they do put out a patch that bad, you better be sure they'll be like, get on top of that straight away. Like, all hands on deck. Put out that fire immediately, because they're not going to want to suffer the fate of the executives, the people that have real power over them, to come down and be like, you just cost me millions of dollars, you bitch. Okay? That you want to put the fear of money in them. And that's how you do it. Now, unfortunately, people don't have a lot of willpower. And so they'll be like, oh, but I really want to play Tides of Torment on launch. So I don't expect it to happen, because people don't have willpower, and they'll be like, oh, I don't want to wait 2 weeks before I play it for this to never happen again. I want to play it now. I've waited a year for it. I get it. That's why I don't think it's going to happen. But if it did happen, I'm pretty sure that would work. They really don't want you to know that. Really don't. And also, by me saying not purchasing Tides of Torment, I'm saying not purchase it on day one and make it clear that that's the reason. And then when the accountability is taken, then purchase it. Which ultimately means that they get their money in the end. It's just that the accountability is done. That's the big thing there. If you want to not have to do it again. Because you can't rely on YouTubers coming out and warning you every time they're going to do this, because you shouldn't have had to do that in the first place. And you shouldn't have had to do this either. But yeah, I thought this was a very interesting psychological case here. I mean, it's all pretty much the same thing with Creative Assembly. I mean, I've gone through this so many times here, where they address things by not addressing things, and they use smoke and mirrors to make people think that it's been addressed, but it really hasn't. The core of the problem isn't fixed. You're going to encounter this again, unless something is done about it, like properly. But it's up to you. Anyway, guys, that's the end of this one. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on all this. Again, I'm not trying to get you to do anything. This was just a discussion about theorizing what they're doing here and what you could potentially do to hold the management accountable. Again, it's not the people working at the company trying to do stuff. It's likely that they've got deadlines that they just had to push, and it's the management that are at fault, not the actual developers. Although usually what happens is the developers are the ones that get blamed for it and lose their jobs, which is, I think, what happened in 2023, which is why we're seeing the exact same thing happen again. They lost the people whose fault it wasn't, and the people whose fault it was stayed on to repeat the mistake again. It's freaking hilarious. But anyway, end of this one. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.